Yeah.
Board, attached are the minutes of the executive session and regular session meetings held on September 4th, 2025, and the executive session held on September 11th, 2025. Your pleasure.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the executive session and the regular session minutes of September 4th, 2025, and the executive session minutes of September 11th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, board?
Thank you, that was a lot of work, we know.
Yes, it was.
It's a lot of minutes.
She's amazing.
She is.
All right, board, and we passed that 5-0. We had 2 board members absent this evening. Next item is the financial reports. Attached are the accounts payable vouchers registered for September 18th, 2025. That would be you, Miss Grace, this evening, your solo.
I am.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello? Okay. First, we have school education. That is $757,305.54. Then we have education form Kermat. That is $68,211.15. Exempt operating post 2009, $65,844.10. We have school operations, which is $398,370.19. We have construction 0700, which is $187,499.60. Construction projects is $7,905.59. School lunch is $200,041.40. Self-insurance fund, which is $447,955.15. Building brickies is $552.80. School Education Foundation is $1,595.39. Early Years Initiative Grant is $2,147. Healthy Hobart / BFTS is $13,556.32. Career Coaching Grant is $82.74. Title I Part A FY 25/26 is $3,596.97. Paraprofessional Training Grant is $7,238. Title IV Part A FY 24/25 is $599. The Title II Part A FY 24/25 is $4,267.41. The Title II Part A FY 25/26 is $52.80. Clearing accounts is $332,435.96. Self-insurance clearing is $53,778.16. Clearing / flexible benefits AF is $24,450.82. Prepaid food is $53.30. Clearing / ins account is $2,880.97. And then credit card fee clearing is $6,876.61. That brings us to a total vouchers of $2,587,261.35.
Very good.
Thank you, Grace.
Good job.
Credit card
Board?
fee clearing.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve payment of the vouchers for September 18th,
That brings us
2025.
to a total vouchers of
Second.
$2,587,261.35.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? And that passes 5-0 again. Thank you, board.
Payment of the vouchers for September 18th,
Are there any comments on agenda items from the audience? That would be a no. Personnel report, Mr. Mock.
Board, in your electronic packet, you received a copy of the personnel report and the personnel report addendum for September 18th. Board action is requested.
Are there any comments on?
Recommend the board approve the personnel reports as presented.
Second.
Board, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Personnel report and the personnel report addendum for September 18th.
Nope, looks like a lot of work. Thank you guys for through that.
Personnel reports as presented.
Second.
Board, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? It's okay. Thank you, Board. That passes 5-0. All right, next item on the agenda is the School Custodial and Maintenance Employees Recognition Day. Dr. Buffington?
Yes, board, in your packet, you have a copy of the resolution for school custodian and maintenance recognition. And I know that our secretary will read the resolution and its title. Let's just say how we are so dependent on them, and they do a great job. We were just honoring our director of facilities that just retired, Felix Perry. But the team that we have that keeps our schools clean and our facilities looking great, we couldn't be prouder of them. They're awesome team people that I look at our schools, and particularly you come into this school and people always comment how it still looks like it's a new school. And so we have a lot to be proud of. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Secretary.
Okay, we have a resolution today, number 2025-23, School Custodial and Maintenance Employees Recognition Day. Who else have to do a,
I'd like to make a motion that the board adopt resolution number 2025-23, recognizing school custodial and maintenance employees recognition day.
second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Well, I know I have 2 kids, and cleaning up after them is rough, so having almost 4,000, they're doing good work.
Here, here.
Mr. Porras, if you would do roll call, please.
Mr. David Cosby is absent. Don Rogers,
Aye.
Brad King,
Aye.
Stuart Schultz is absent. Frank Porras votes aye. Sandy Hillen,
Aye.
and Ricky Dutton.
Aye.
Here, here.
Mr. David Cosby is absent.
That vote is 5-0. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda is the recommendation to accept the IDOE RoboKind grant. Dr. Buffington?
Well, we want to thank Tammy May for all the hard work that she does for these grants. And this one is, the grant was for $20,050, and last year's grant was $12,000. She does this for our special needs program over at Joanne Martin. And this humanoid robot teaches communication and social skills with our special needs. Now, I will just say, adults are not fans of this thing. Yeah, he does look like, but the kids love it.
I brought him in, if you recall.
I
He brought
recall.
him in, He went crazy.
Yeah. He had a mind of his own.
Definitely a mind of his own. But anyways, the kids respond to it. The grant now also includes access to new phonics lessons, which that's very cool. And so we are just really proud of Tammy for always reaching out. The Joanne Martin robot's name is Milo. You've all met Milo. He's about 2 feet tall. And he can produce a wide range of emotions so that students can practice that. And when you have autism, that is a great way to reach out to kids. So the research shows up to 80% improvement in communication skills and a 40% increase and engagement when compared to traditional therapy. And we wouldn't have this without Tammy. So we applaud her and we ask that the board accept the RoboKind grant and authorize the superintendent to execute the documents.
I'd like to make a motion that the board accept the IDOE RoboKind grant and authorize the superintendent to execute any necessary documents for the grant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
If you could please pass our thanks on.
Please.
And that
Sure,
is a
knows.
competitive grant as well,
It
so
is.
it's not easy to get. There were so many applicants this year that it was a handful, really, that received it out of all the applicants.
I think that they got some pretty good publicity with the Joanne Martin one though. And so they also know that we're gonna execute whatever we get to the fullest extent because we have she's our specialist that will hold your hand till you get how to use it, right? So it's very good.
That is good. And that passes 5-0. Thank you, board. Our next item on the agenda is the recommendation to accept the secured safety grant from the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. Dr. Buffington.
All right, board, in your packet, you have a copy of the Indiana Secured School Safety Grant. It's a matching grant for $92,500. We use this to contribute, it's matching and it helps offset the cost of SROs. It's a little more than last year, thank goodness. Originally, when we would get this grant, it would always be $100,000. I know we're grateful for any money that is allocated for school safety. I will tell you that Greg Bialotta does this grant for us all the time, and we're appreciative of that. One of the things that superintendents have long since asked legislators why they wouldn't just give the money to the school for the SRO instead of making you fill out a grant form. I mean, because almost everybody would be using it for an SRO. But I'm just saying that would be less work on the schools just to get that money to have it for SROs. Anyways, we're grateful for that. Also attached in here, you will find our agreement with the city for our SROs. And I do want to say I'm always grateful to the city for partnering with us. And, you know, we have a 60-40 split with them. They tried to reduce our costs by 5% because of SEA 1, Senate Enrolled Act 1. And so what you see in here is an agreement with the city for 1 year as we are looking at, you know, our resources because of all of the cuts because of Senate Enrolled Act 1. I can just say that it was very nice of them to try to go in and do a little more for us, and we're grateful for that. With that being said, I need the board to accept the Secured School Safety Grant and authorize that to be signed and agreed upon, along with the SRO agreement with the City of Hobart as presented.
I'd like to make a motion that the board accept the Secured School Safety Grant from the Department of Homeland Security and the SRO agreement with the City of Hobart as presented and authorize the superintendent to execute the grant and the agreement.
Along with the SRO agreement with the City of Hobart as presented.
Okay, board, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I think it's a great program, and I'm very thankful for the city for chipping in. Love to see the SROs there. The kids love the SROs, and the presence is definitely appreciated too.
Okay, board, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I think it's a great program, and I'm very thankful for the city for chipping in. Love to see the SROs there. The kids love the SROs, and the presence.
Thank you, board. That passes 5-0. And our next item on the agenda is Mr. Glover with the year 2026 budget and 2026 bus replacement plan. And I'd like to, before you start, say thank you to Mr. Rogers for supplying us with popcorn.
There you go.
Here, here.
Tradition.
Board, in your electronic packet, you have a series of documents related to this year's advertised budget and bus replacement plan. The Form 3, including notice to taxpayers and the bus replacement plan, the 2026 advertised budget with detail, Gateway budget forms, including the current year financial worksheet, debt worksheet, as well as budget forms 1, 2, 4, and 4B, as well as IDOE state tuition support funding formula sample worksheet based on an ADM count of 3922 with 52 virtual students. I've asked Chris to share a couple of graphics as we go into some of the district and state trends that we're looking at as we move into the new year here. Much of this information I'm sure you're already familiar with. Here's a look at the historical run of our assessed value. We're up about 8.8% this year to over $1.1 billion in assessed value throughout the district. Of course, this is great news. It helps support the funds that rely on property tax. We'll outline some of the changes legislatively as we go through tonight, but obviously a raise in assessed value at that magnitude is an overall positive thing. Ultimately, we know the state limits our maximum tax levy in the operations fund. According to the Department of Local Government Finance, our 2025 maximum levy for operations, which you can see on the Form 3, is $4,661,424. This would be an increase of 4% over 2025. That, once again, is the maximum levy growth quotient for the year, 4%. Unfortunately, as we know, circuit breaker heavily impacts us as a primarily residential community, and so we, of course, have been receiving less and less of that as time goes on. Chris, you could kind of scroll down through that. That's just a forecast analytic on future AV, projection, nothing set in stone there. And there's the detail on the assessed value in the community for the year. And then the circuit breaker graphic will be the next one down, Chris. So that kind of gives you a look at where we've been historically in terms of tax cap loss due to the circuit breaker. There are a number of things to look at here. Of course, reminder on the basics, right? Taxes on residential homesteads are capped at 1% of assessed value, and therefore communities like ours with heavy residential tax base makeups are hit particularly hard by circuit breaker. Communities that have greater concentration of farmland or commercial property maybe don't feel the same level of impact on this front that we do, right?
Well, and we should just give that a number. This is the original circuit breaker, property tax cap. We lose about 80% of property tax collection with the original circuit breaker. And so we'll talk more about Senate Enrolled Act 1, which is kind of like a second circuit breaker that kind of puts us from that 80% at 1 year, it's like 109%, and another year it's 113%. And so the property tax caps are really very hurtful to this school district.
On that note, on the Form 3, you'll note that the DLGF provided a 2026 circuit breaker estimate figure at over $6.7 million. That would be an increase of $3.6 million over this past year. Now, we want to unpack that a little bit because there's a lot that goes into that, but I felt it was important to explain it given that it's right there on the form on Gateway. So among the things to consider as we look at the history here, right? When you look at the graph, you can see the steady upward trend. However, we did see a little bit of relief on that front this year in 2025, that estimated figure down to a little over $3.1 million. Reminder that that's a byproduct largely of the lower debt service rate. You'll recall that we lowered our debt service rate in 2025 to under 80 cents, giving us the ability to issue bonds this year. And so we did see a little fluctuation in circuit breaker as a result of that. And then
That is just for that year.
Right.
And remember, we temporarily did that in order to bond, right? And so you won't see that going forward.
And so the additional issue that plays into this year would be what they're calling local property tax credits. This is the provision beginning in 2026 where eligible homesteads will receive an additional property tax credit, potentially up to $300. This, in effect, is a second circuit breaker now, right? Another layer of legislated property tax relief, which of course results in reduced revenue for local government units. And so it's been a challenge to wade through those changes this year as we prepare the budget. The figure that's on the graphic there as a 2026 estimate, you'll notice is lower than the DLGF version. We've got about 5.3 million. That figure is based on a preliminary review of our individual circumstances from Policy Analytics. That is not final or locked in at this point because there are still some things that are lingering out there. We did check both with Policy Analytics on their methodology and then cross-reference that with the DLGF in terms of why the difference between the two figures, right? Because there's quite a bit of difference there.
We should point out, though, that the DLGF said use Policy Analytics information.
They did.
Because they're more accurate. So it's important that Bobby is pointing this out to you because there is a distinct difference, which made us keep double checking things. And Policy Analytics, I mean, like, they even work with the county. And so when DLGF was contacted, they're like, they have more accurate information, use the DLGF. So we wanted to make sure that you all knew that.
Yeah, and they basically both said that the DLGF estimate is meant to be sort of like the very worst case scenario. So for starters, it assumed no assessed value growth. That number was produced prior to the assessed values being released. Those came a month or so later, and so we know that we got that, 8% plus in growth, whereas their figure was based on no AV growth, right? And then additionally, they make sort of worst case scenario assumptions in terms of the levies for not only us, but all of the overlapping taxing units, like the city of Hobart, for example, right? And so this would be sort of the perfect storm, right? No AV growth, everybody maxing out all of their respective rates and levies, which would create that magnitude of circuit breaker loss. Policy Analytics is going to work with us once we finalize our bond issue for the year to get us a much more accurate figure. They can't pin it down a whole lot more than that without having what the impact next year of the bond will be on our debt service needs. But their estimate was also produced prior to the assessed value being released. They had modeled in, I think, a 2% increase. So here again, we far surpassed that, so that's good fortune.
It was.
there.
We should all be so thankful. 8.8% is spectacular.
So some context there that I think is important, right? Our circuit breaker loss has increased over $1 million since 2022. It could well they'll reach $2 million this year, and you can see the trend line there. It's been nothing but straight up. We did start to ask questions that we haven't had the need to ask before in light of this new legislation. Things like, well, what happens if the circuit breaker eats up our entire operations fund levy, and then what? Because as Dr. Buffington mentioned, some of those reports we're receiving show circuit breaker figures in excess of our maximum levy in operations. And what we learned is that if that were to ever happen, they would start cutting into your debt service levy to hit that number, right? So typically they fill your debt service needs first, and then operations just sort of gets whatever's left over, right? And so if there weren't enough to take in operations, they would start taking from debt at that point.
And they also said that if you deplete your debt service, they move to the education fund. So there is a cycle there. They will reduce and they will take what they need, or you won't get what you need, I should say.
Right. The first glimpse at our situation once we got AV, Policy Analytics was a lot more optimistic about the circuit breaker situation. He cautiously optimistic thought that there was a chance we actually would still get a little money in operations this year. But again, they can't really pin that down until we finish up with the bond work. And so regardless of how it pans out, we're going to see the largest circuit breaker loss we've ever seen as a result of this new legislation. Since 2020, our AVs increased 53.8%, right? And so, you know, these things are just worth mentioning as part of the overall picture, right? Because again, while our operations levy technically increases, the combination of limiting your maximum levy to 4% a year with circuit breaker means that we're actually receiving less in the fund, despite the fact that AV has grown leaps and bounds in the last 5 or 6 years. Our maximum levy itself has only gone up 28.3% due to the limit imposed by the MLGQ, right? And circuit breaker has, again, caused our actual receipts to decrease by over $2 million during that same period, right? So even though our AV continues to climb, we're not seeing that benefit on the operations side. And ultimately, that's one of the great challenges that our community faces with these tax base dynamics. The benefit of the AV growth is more consistently realized in the operating referendum fund because it is outside of those circuit breaker limits, right? And so we do expect to see a little bit of growth there this year. A reminder that in 24 and 25, the state saw the rapid AV growth statewide, and they limited growth in operating referendum funds as well to 3%. They sort of cooked that up as they were watching AVs go wild, and they were trying to limit the impact on homeowners in the process. Our estimates were that we probably lost maybe about $80,000 relative to what we would have gotten if they had not limited us in that way over the last couple of years. However, some good news that with us being renewed this spring, winning the renewal for the referendum, we get to reset to the proper tax rate in that fund. And the early estimates on that are that we should probably expect maybe an additional $200,000 or so in our operating referendum fund this year compared to last.
Right, but going forward with Senate Enrolled Act 1, we will actually lose money in the operating referendum. So
Correct.
So we got a little bit at the beginning, but it will be slowly dwindle away.
Yeah, over time, and this is another thing that we're working with policy analytics on, is to model out what this will look like in future years. But essentially what we expect is that, yeah, we'll get this short-term bump in '26, and then from '27 till probably about 2031, as all of that new legislation that changes the deduction dynamic and the way that they assess home values is phased in a little bit at a time, year after year. We're expecting to kind of bottom out around 2031 or so, at which point everything would kind of settle in under the new system, and then we would gradually start to climb back from that bottom again. But again, preliminary estimates on that are that we would expect to not so the idea being, okay, we passed our referendum prior to SEA 1. We didn't even know it was on the horizon when we went out and we put the whole project together, right? We passed it right as the legislation was being finalized downstate. If that legislation had never happened, we would have expected to levy for probably about $6 million more over the life of those 8 years than what we expect to get now. So that's obviously a devastating consequence of that legislation. So you're talking about $6 million that you would have stood to gain over the course of that time, and then beyond that, an actual reduction in revenue from our current baseline as well, right? Where if we pull in something in the neighborhood of $3 million this coming year, that will probably decrease to somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.3 million or so as we fall down that slope as the new legislation takes effect.
It's about, so at early projections, and we're trying to finalize all of those, just Senate Enrolled Act 1 and our regular operating budget, it's about $6 million. This is about $6 million. We're in between that 12.5 million with both of those funds, and the devastation that we'll be losing.
Okay, so that's that. The next thing, we typically update you every year on the trends in health insurance. Of course, we've seen some pretty hefty increases in recent years. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about
Sure.
how things played out this year.
So basically, when you're looking at this graph right here, there was no increase with our provider this year. And that would simply be because they did not laser out some people on our insurance package. And so therefore, them not lasering them out caused us to not be assessed for those people and that were lasered out of the plan. When we say lasered out, they're excluded for various reasons of expense. And so what happens with that is then that usually falls on our self-insured account, and we're having to pay for those lasers. We're constantly looking for solutions to help care for our employees, but on top of caring for our employees, having a manageable thing that does not affect the whole package. We were quite surprised by this, to be quite frank, that we end up with the same insurance with no increase, and it's simply because we had a contract with them that they could not add lasers for 1 year. And they didn't add lasers as a mistake, and then quite frankly, what happened is then they couldn't add any new ones. So we really were very fortunate that that happened to us, and we didn't have an insurance increase. But as you can see, and you're looking at healthcare, just looking at the graph, whether we had an increase or not, it's very expensive. And we're constantly on our end looking for solutions to bring that cost down. Martha Glover works in our office. She is our specialist on insurance, being self-insured. We have a lot of third parties that help us maintain. So let's just talk about what those are, trying to keep that cost down. You know, like we were talking to the Teachers Association today, just simply about the Bricky Clinic. A lot of people don't realize that that keeps a lot of our employees from going to the emergency room, which drives our cost up. And it also costs them money when they go to the emergency room. The other thing that the Bricky Clinic provides is certain medications that is on a docket list that we have with them. It also provides other immediate care places that they can go to, keeping that cost down. In addition, we have something called RX Protect that we keep in our insurance as a third party to drive down the cost of prescription drugs. Believe it or not, sometimes the prescription drugs is where all the increases are, and it's quite expensive versus your medical. So we have that third party working with us, and we're just constantly working on solutions to keep that at bay. It's very difficult. But if you're wondering why that is equal, now you know. Pretty much, that's it.
Right. Okay, Chris, I think you're good to shut that down. That was the last graphic there. An update then on state tuition funding and the education fund. In your packet, again, you have a detailed version of the state funding worksheet. Here, there are a variety of factors that go into that, but as you know, the most significant factor is just the raw number of students that are enrolled in the school district. The budget for our education fund that you have presented to you was based on an ADM count of 3929. After talking with Chris this morning, the current number was more like 3922, which would be right kind of in between where we started last year, not as high as where we started last year, but higher than where we ended last year in February. And so the open enrollment initiative certainly helped to stabilize ADM, but those factors that we talk about in terms of school choice and decreased birth rate, right? The smaller incoming classes of kindergartners than the outgoing senior classes remain challenges on this front.
Right, so as he's suggesting that, it was a very good move to go to open enrollment because we would have been in serious negative numbers. I do want to just comment on school choice. And, so you can choose a charter school, you can choose like scholarship choice to go to a private or a parochial school, or just plain parent choice. There's so many schools that have open enrollment now. And when you also look at open enrollment, you also now have that there's no athletic penalty for 1 year if you have open enrollment and you want to go somewhere else, unless you're a senior. So what you see is you see a lot of movement in communities. And so that total for us last year, 315. And you're saying, well, that's a very large number. Yes, it is. So when you wonder where all of those kids are, many of those kids are in online schools. And so, it's something to take a look at. And then you have to wonder about the quality of the online school too. So we caution parents if they're going to make that choice. We have an online school, and we take very good care of our students. We'd like for them to use our online school. these are things that are really very difficult when you're making a budget and you're going into a school year and you're trying to staff and you don't know what your enrollment's going to be. So you can imagine we're all equipped for open enrollment and we come out minus 14 students with open enrollment. Now, I would say I'm hopeful for the future. I'm hopeful that Crestmore keeps producing houses and we have kids that move in and they get to come to our school system because it's a great school system. I was talking to a young lady today. We did our mentor program here at the high school. This is her second year at the high school, and her mom wanted to move back to St. Louis, and she's like, I'm begging my mom not to move back. I love it here. We have a great school system, and we just wondered, come back to us. Why are you choosing a charter school? I can certainly understand if people are choosing a parochial school and they want to, they want to infuse the faith aspect into their child's education. But for charter schools and you're choosing an online version or a neighboring school corporation, you're missing out. Our kids have early college opportunities here, and come on back. In the meantime, I don't know if you noticed that they approved another subdivision on 61st Avenue. And so that would be good for us as well. And I'm hoping by that, our numbers grow and we'll keep open enrollment and see what happens. According to some of my colleagues, the second year is a little higher. And so we could see a different number with that in the second year. Because people, it's as much as you advertise, they really just didn't know. A lot of people didn't. So we'll see how that goes. But that's an update on enrollment.
And another quick interesting note, when Chris and I were talking this morning, we kind of realized that from this day last year to ADM count day, we actually gained some students in that couple weeks. So there really is no telling how those things will play out.
We might get a few more.
You never know. We are in the first year of the new state biennium, right? So we've got to look at this year and next year on the funding formula front. There won't be a new budget until the spring of 2027 at the state level. For this year, if you add or subtract one student on the state formula worksheet for us, that value is about $7,602. Other notable changes this year, the state inserted curricular materials funding into the basic grant amount. Last year that was just under $158 per student. So that's one of the figures that we're working off of as we model this out. Unfortunately, the state didn't give us an updated figure for what that was. They just sort of took the whole pot of money and shoved it into the foundation grant amount. This creates an illusion of a larger funding increase than what it was in reality, because we were already getting a good chunk of that money.
Right, so what you saw is that when they said education received a 2% increase, they put that inside of that funding increase. It's part of our foundation. And so for us, that's around $600,000, and it really wasn't a 2%.
First ADM count for this year is October 1st, and then it'll take a few weeks until we know an official number as Chris and the state and all the other schools work to clean up the data. Reminder that we are back to counting virtual students at 85% for funding purposes. We were at 100% for a while during the pandemic, but they've since gone back to the 85%. The difference in funding on that worksheet between a person being in person versus if we switch them over to virtual is about $1,046. So that's kind of that impact there. Of course, we do have our own Bricky Virtual School. This is the 5th year of that program now. And we think that our virtual enrollment for the first semester could be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 students, the way things stand right now. Reminder that that program was born out of COVID originally, and we used federal ESSER dollars to establish it. But this is the second year now that we've had to incorporate that into the education fund completely. Okay. On the other funds, the operations fund, referendum operating fund, debt service fund, and referendum debt funds are funded primarily by property tax revenues, right? As we mentioned before, the tax levy in operations is limited by the state, both on the year-to-year growth level through the maximum levy growth quotient and through circuit breaker. Additionally, worldwide economic climate and inflation continues to be an issue. We have an awful lot of variable costs, remember, in operations, right? And so whether that's your property casualty insurance, or more notably right now, the utility bills, right? We're slated to start seeing the impact of NIPSCO's rate increases here this fall, with another round of increases phased in the spring. And so this is another
It's about
major,
17%.
major challenge for us going forward, right? Unfortunately, those recent changes in Senate Enrolled Act 1 only made things worse, right? We come here every year and talk about the challenges in operations, and that legislation is only going to make this tougher than it has been. As usual, the 2026 budget is structured to rely on increased transfers from the education fund into operations. We've got to do this to compensate for the loss in property tax revenue. We've managed to hold the line at just under 15%. We were so close this last year that the state actually thought we went over. They made an error in the calculation, and we had to go back and tell them that they missed something, and then we were fine. But that's how close we're trying to cut it. And then, ultimately, it may not be possible to stay under that 15% going forward here. We'll have to see how things play out.
Right. I think that's one of the most difficult things as we talk about this, because, that education fund is all, it's meant to be providing for the classroom, and they allow that 15% to be transferred. If they didn't allow that right now, we couldn't pay our utility bill. And now that you have a second circuit breaker on top of this, we are struggling like crazy. And so, to Mr. Glover's point, and this is really important to note, I mean, if that's the healthiest fund and you don't have money to pay your utility bill, you will go over to that fund to pay your utility bill. So, we feel like we have things in a way where we're managing it. It's just overly concerning that you're cutting it that close, right? And so, we hope to talk to legislators and just show them. I think, when we're talking about what we would like for them to look at, if they would just look at school corporations that are losing 50 to 60% of their property tax, if they would just look at those school corporations and provide some relief for them, they're unlike other school districts, right? So when you're thinking about it, I mean, everybody is going to take a hit off of Senate Enrolled Act 1. But if you didn't have hardly anything left because of the current circuit breaker, and a lot of people don't understand, it's all taxing units that feed into our current circuit breaker, whether it's the county, the library, the city, and the school corporation. We're all taxing units. We lose 80% without Senate Enrolled Act 1. So our goal would be to talk to our legislators to please take another look at those schools that are hurting so bad because of that.
Of course, the challenges in operations were the driving factor behind the passage and now renewal of our operating referendum. That fund has a fixed tax rate, but benefits from the higher AV as it's allowed to tax TIF districts. And as we mentioned earlier, it's also not subject to circuit breaker. It's outside of that. And so, again, the operating referendum, we know is essential to supporting our overall operational costs, primarily utilized for the transportation department and school safety. Revenue growth in this fund has not matched the cost of inflation, however, nor has it matched our losses in circuit breaker. The original intent when it was first passed 9 years ago was to sort of fill the gap created by circuit breaker, but circuit breaker has run wild and far outpaced the growth in that fund. And so, these are just things that kind of eat us up as we go through the process here. Both of our debt funds are taxed on the basis of the need to generate a levy that will meet our debt obligations for the year, right? The exact debt service levy for 2026 will be determined after we issue bonds here in the near future. The number that's on the advertised budget is high, as is normally the case. We work to advertise higher than what we expect in some of these cases, so that we make sure that we're able to levy for the maximum amounts that we need. You'll note this year we are not seeking to appropriate the $300,000 balance in our rainy day fund at this time. We do have those funds appropriated for calendar year 25. You might recall that we had concern about the self-insured fund a year ago, but as Dr. Buffington laid out, we've had some good fortune on that front, and so we're not looking to change anything with that fund right now. We don't expect to have to spend it this year, so that should remain intact for the time being. Let me see. You've also got detail on our 5-year bus replacement plan, which we're required to advertise as part of this process. Dr. Buffington and I worked with Becky Rosenbaum, our new Director of Transportation, to kind of get her familiar with how this process works, and to try to get her up to speed on our current funding dynamics so that we could lay out a plan for what the next few years could look like under these new legislative conditions. Again, the cost of buses has increased dramatically recently. So every year we bring this to you, we're budgeting a higher and higher number for the cost of those because they just seem to continue to rise.
It was just such a supply and demand issue during COVID, and then the prices never went back down. It's about $170,000 for a bus, and so it's extremely expensive.
So in total, the advertised budget this year at $56,797,570 represents an increase of about $1.4 million compared to the actual 2025 budget order, which was only a little bit different from the advertised budget a year ago. We've got a little more uncertainty this year on the debt service side, so you may see a different level of change this year when it gets finalized. The advertised budgets in education and operations are down about 3% each from a year ago, whereas the operating referendum budget is increased about 5%. And so where you see the overall increase in the budget, again, that's based on the changes in the debt service dynamics primarily, right? Where we artificially held our rate down, we reduced our operating balance to a level that we don't normally let it sit at so that we could lower our tax rate this year, so that we could issue bonds here coming up. And so now, as we move forward, we're looking at a future debt service rate that is likely to be much closer to like what we saw previously, 2024, 2023 levels.
And you'll see that come down. I mean, obviously, the high school scheduled, and some other bonds that we had to come off in 2028. You know, one of the things that we will kind of talk to the legislators about, if they would consider with this Senate Enrolled Act, I mean, like, would I love to pay off our high school in 2028? I would. We have so much to be thankful for. But if we could restructure that debt and stretch it out just a little bit, it would lower our payments, and the circuit breaker, we could get some relief from that. And so that was repealed about 2 years ago, that you were allowed to restructure your debt. You know, that's not even a gift to ask them to do it. It's a necessity. Because what could happen, it would provide tremendous relief to us. And, I mean, like, I wanted to celebrate the day that we would be done paying for this building. It's so hard to believe that it's just around the corner. But if that could provide relief to our budget, and stretching it out just a little bit, it would certainly be worth it. But that's something we need them to do, that they would have to put that back in place to allow us to do that. We see that as a solution to help us, if they're not gonna do anything to help schools and municipalities in the short session. And so, we'll pursue that. We're constantly looking for ways to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our school district.
So with that, I request the board's permission to advertise the notice to taxpayers for the 2026 budget in the amount of $31,548,205 for the education fund, $9,100,982 for the operations fund, $11,361,275 for the debt service fund, $3,004,733 for the exempt operating referendum fund, and $1,782,375 for the exempt debt capital referendum fund. And also that the board place on the October 2nd, 2025 board meeting agenda the public hearing for the 2026 budget and bus replacement plan.
I'd like to make a motion that the board grant permission to advertise the required notice to taxpayers for the 2026 budget in the amount of those listed by Mr. Glover, and also that the board place on the October 2nd, 2025 board meeting agenda the public hearing for the 2026 budget and bus replacement plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Well, I definitely want to thank Mr. Glover, because this has been a tough budget. When you are faced with so many uncertainties and having to do checks and balances with every, entity that we deal with to try to make sure we're being as accurate as possible. And so, it's been a lot of difficult work, and I am grateful for him, because you have in front of you what we see to be the best solution for us going forward, and just want to thank him. He did a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Glover.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. We're sorry you couldn't come and keep us company.
I missed it. As I said earlier, I truly would have rather been there.
I think he doesn't want me in his office anymore, is what I really think.
No comment.
Yeah, and he's like locking the door. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you again for your hard work.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying, you've got a lot of challenges there in this budget, and we all do. But thank you for the hard work you put in, and the good explanation of where they're at and why they're there.
You're welcome.
So you're not gonna send a thank you letter to the state?
I will not.
Okay.
Me either.
It may not say thank you.
With that, the board votes to pass that 5-0. Thank you. And the next agenda item is an update on the JROTC Raider State Championship. Dr. Buffington?
Right, this is some really exciting news, and this comes from Major Brian Carroll. There were some openings at the State Raider Championship competition, and he applied to take an additional Raider team to the competition, and they approved his request. So now we'll be taking 28 cadets. Just wanted to let the board know that little update.
Okay. Thank you for that. The next update announcement and report would be the Bricky Parent Academy. Dr. Buffington?
Well, this is something that last school year, as an administrative team, we just really felt as though we really wanted to have more engagement with our parents on some things that we know, because we're constantly out doing our research, attending webinars, Zooms, whatever we can do, and we read a lot. And just things that we're noticing with our students that perhaps they don't see when we're seeing them at school, and how can we help them, and how can they help us? And so this would be us launching what we're calling the Bricky Parent Academy, and we're hoping that parents will come. Because a lot of times we'll offer a workshop and there will be 5 people in the audience, and we think we have a lot of good topics here to talk to parents about. So the first one that we're going to be doing is on school safety. A lot of times parents don't realize all the safety mechanisms that we have in play. And for instance, if we had to secure one of our buildings, and we use the word secure, that might mean that there's something going on the outside, and we're okay on the inside, but we don't want anybody going outside, right? I mean, like, we would just go over some of our posters that we teach our students about. We would go over our ALICE protocol. We would go over our Cooper Code of Awareness, talk to them about how kids can use the tip line. And we just thought it's a really good time for them to understand some of the safety protocol that we have, and to allow them to ask questions. One of the schools down in Indianapolis used ALICE when they had an incident at their school, and the students used ALICE, and the parents were like, "What's ALICE?" And we try to tell people what ALICE is, so I hope they will come and learn about how we try to teach kids how to use that protocol if necessary. So we're calling it the Bricky Parent Academy. Let's just go through the other topics real quick. Helping students to discover their hidden potential and achieve dreams and goals. Matt Whiteman is going to help me with this, as is Chris King. We're going to be talking about wildly important goals and pretty important goals, and trying to help kids look at the difference between the two. We're also going to show parents how to really use Skyward, Canvas, and really just try to help stay on top of helping make sure that their kids are being successful with the tools that we have. The last two are really important ones to us. Some of the latest research coming out on the anxious generation, as we see a lot of kids rising with anxiety in our schools, we want to share with them the latest research on how to help drastically bring that down and help their children if they do have anxiety. So we're going to share some techniques with that. And then raising mentally healthy kids, following right behind that on how to use love and logic to nurture confident, kind, and responsible children and young adults. We have some really great research to share with parents. I hope they will come out and join us. And we are going to give door prizes away. We can have child care too if they ask ahead of time. So there you go.
Very good. Thank you. That's a great idea.
I like it. Now we just got to get people to go.
Right. Our next item of agenda is updates, announcements, and reports. Dr. Buffington?
Really quick, before I go to this, I do want to point out that doesn't include all the other stuff that we do. I mean, with freshman orientation, sixth grade orientation, coffee chats, things that we do at all of our individual schools. Those are specifically tied to all district. And so I don't want you to think that, like, we have stuff going on for parents all the time. Those are just district-wide initiatives. Also on the next agenda item, you have weekly agendas from our schools, and of course, the always exciting to read Brick Center that highlights all the athletics in our school district. I will just say for our Bricky fan section, it's really incredible, and it brings a lot of joy to see our kids getting so into supporting the Brickies. And we're doing really great. Go out there and vote for us as we play Andrean. I'm not sure what you guys have cooked up, Grace. What are you guys doing at Andrean?
I'm not sure. The theme is frat though.
Yes.
But usually they film like a video of us getting hyped, and then everyone votes for us on social media, and we've won 3 times in a row.
Yep.
So we have to keep the winning streak because we get like prizes and stuff from like the Jet.
T-Mobile
Yeah.
and Jed TV.
Yes.
Well, I can just say you do have the crowd going, so we're really proud of you guys.
Good job.
Alrighty.
And the next item is upcoming activities and events. That would also be Dr. Buffington.
All right, well, it's coming our way. Homecoming parade, 6 o'clock, and the Powder Puff game. Those are always 2 great events coming up for homecoming. Preparing now for your child's life after high school presentation. That's September 23rd. You also have the Lake County Self-Defense Human Trafficking Education Program at Jubilee. We had a gentleman in the audience talking about that, and I encourage people to go to that. September 29th through October 3rd is College Go, and some of our dress-up days. That's always a lot of fun. And then October 6th, we have Tall Cop, and that, if you are a parent, I encourage you to go to that. He does the best presentation. He is going to be at the Dean and Barbara White Center in Maryville. And so Tall Cop, he actually comes and stays in your community for a little bit, and he makes you well aware of where drugs and things that are being sold right out from under, like they're right in front of you and you just don't realize it. But he also talks to you about the things that kids are being exposed to, and what the latest trends are in drugs, and they're so dangerous. And I think every parent needs that education. October 12th is Harvest Homecoming, and that would be with the Hobart Educational Foundation. Our new venue, we are in the Great Hall. It's a brunch. Wolfgang will be performing, and we're going to have a great time, and I hope people will buy the tickets. They're at a reduced cost of $35. All of that money will go towards scholarships and grants, and so scholarships for our students, grants for our teachers, and I hope people will come out and support that hardworking group. The last thing on your list here is the Aquatic Center taking reservations for September through December. And if you've never had a party in the pool, it's a lot of fun.
Our next item on our agenda is comments. Dr. Buffington?
Well, it's been a very busy week this week, and I just want to say, my colleagues to the left, they're incredible, hardworking people, and I'm very appreciative of them. And I would just point out, I'm glad that you guys went to ISBA and you had a great time. We were manning the ship back here with some very, very tough things that we had to get done. And I would be remiss not to say, I've said special thanks to Bobby, but John Mock has done an incredible job with rolling out our emergency calling system with Centegix. And it was a lot of work. We had Russ Mellon involved with it, but trying to execute that with over 500 employees, and then of course you've got our 6 buildings and then our 2 ancillary buildings, and trying to make sure that we're protecting instructional time, trying to cover our administrators as they learn the administrative role. Yesterday, someone had to use the button for "I need help," and the administrators were able to get on scene right away. So his hard work paid off. I can't thank the technology department enough for all the work that they did. It was a lot of work. We saved money by the technology department doing the installs. And so congratulations to all of them, and couldn't be prouder of them for that. So we're hard at work over here, and we'll just keep doing the best things for our students. I do have a couple of comments that are really interesting. Grace, you didn't get to see this, but yesterday, Maren Ray helped me address the sophomores and juniors on PSAT, SAT. It was quite unique in and of itself. And we were just pointing out to them some of their performance. And so to use a student on a panel discussion with me on how to improve their PSAT, SAT score, and one of the things that we were able to highlight, and Maren was just a great presenter, a sidekick for me, in showing our students that their grade point average and their early college is significant, but they don't really care about the PSAT, SAT. And a lot of the times they'll say to us, my school doesn't look at the SAT. So when they think their school doesn't look at the SAT, what do you think that they do on the SAT? They don't care about it. So we had to address that with them, that they're missing scholarship opportunities. And let's just say that your school says they don't check test scores, but there's so many spots in the program. Well, I'm going to look at your SAT score if there's only so many spots, right? So we talked to them a little bit about that, but the biggest thing that we talked to them about is looking at the neighboring school corporations. We offer more college and career readiness than all of those schools, and you all take advantage of it. Our numbers are so high with associate's degrees, 1 year of college. But when you look at the stats on our SAT, we don't compete with them. And it's because our students are not competing academically on that test. And so, and we also had a little kind of surprise for them in drilling down in the data. And we were able to show them, like, significantly they're doing poor in math. And so we said, we're asking you to try to like batten down the hatches in your math classes. Maren Ray had the best advice for them. If you pay attention in class, then you don't have to do anything extra. And so it was kind of funny coming from a student's perspective. But here, when I showed her this, I said, do you think that this would be offensive to show to the students? She said, oh wow, no. There's a distinct difference, and the national research is showing this as well, where girls are outperforming boys. And in our school corporation alone, our girls are outperforming boys by 10%. And I said, so when I showed Maren this data, I said, what is your first reaction? And she said, we're all in the same classes together with the same instruction. Why aren't the boys performing? I said, isn't that a great question? And so we kind of talked about that with the kids. We're like, come on, we need everybody to perform. And it's for yourself, and it's also for the school. I bring that to your attention because there is a serious problem with that being one of our accountability tests that grades our school when colleges are not looking at that. And kids think that, and they just blow off the test. It's the reality of the children that were here. They do their own research. So I had to make an appeal to them to stop acting like that, right? I need you to take that test serious. I had a great podcast show that'll be released next week with some high school kids talking about perseverance and homecoming and academics and athletics and how they go together, right? With how you develop those time management goals and all of that. It's coming out. And it's just been a great week to be able to have kids help us lead. So today, Debbie Mathis and I met with juniors and seniors that are going to mentor freshmen. And so we rolled that out today. We had a great meeting with all of them. They left here pretty hyped. And our keywords were with them is one of the things we did at our administrative retreat. Let's make magic, right? And we're all about transforming and helping them be the best that they can be as freshmen. So I want to give a shout out to my high school students. They have shown up this week for me, and they've done some really cool things, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens because of the hard work they've put in. That's it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Glover?
I want to wish Felix Perry well in retirement. We had a nice little dinner for him this evening, and it was great to hear, especially for me, the people in his department, how much he has meant to so many of them over the years. Great stuff.
Thank you. Mr. King?
I too want to congratulate Felix. I had the opportunity of working in the same building with him and being able to talk to him often and work with him on a lot of things. And I've always been appreciative of him, and he's a great guy, always willing to help. And so I wish him the best on his retirement. I'm sure he'll have a great one. And then I also want to also thank Tammy May. She wrote that grant for the RoboKind, which was in the agenda today. But I truly, she does a ton for our corporation. And she works with kids every single day. They need help, technical or, in Canvas or something. She works with teachers. She's doing PD. I'm calling her to my office to schedule, PD on our district missions. And then she's writing grants on top of that. A lot of them, too, throughout the year. And so I very much appreciate her and all the work she does for our district. She's really an incredible asset.
She really is. So Chris and I met with her this week because we have IXL and they have individual learning plans after you do a checkpoint in I Learn. And everything has a cost, right? And so we're trying to figure out how to use some things with SAT as well as I Learn. And the representative from their company sends me this quote, and I just was like, oh my gosh. And so I called Chris and Tammy. I said, Tammy, we need your help. I mean, this is just so outrageous. And so Tammy, she takes it upon herself to do some self-teaching, self-learning, whatever. And we can schedule webinars with them. And Tammy's like, I'll just teach myself and then I'll teach the district, which we've always used the train the trainer model. But just the fact that we can go to her and the money that she has brought in and that she saves us by just doing that training. We would not be a distinguished Project Lead the Way school district without Tammy May. And so all the money that she's saved us from there and the training that she's done. And now we're gonna tap her with IXL and SAT. So it'll be good. She's awesome.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Longer?
And just to echo what's been said about Felix, I've had the pleasure of serving with him on the board of directors at the YMCA for the last several years, and he's made a huge contribution there, advising the Y on a number of building issues. And, it's sad to see him retire, but it's good to know he's still going to be in the community, and so we'll still have an opportunity to run into him and see him with things in that way. As I was thinking about Felix, I was thinking that, we see a lot of the things that he did, but some of the real significant things he did are things you don't see. You don't see the dollars saved through some of his innovation with energy savings, and you don't see. I can remember a time in this district where there was an attempt to save money by deferring maintenance, do that, you end up playing whack-a-mole with roof leaks and, you know, trying to figure out which roof to fix next because they're all leaking. Felix stayed on top of things and in the long run saved us money because he
He
kept
did.
everything in good shape and repaired things on a realistic schedule so that we didn't have collateral damage because of failures like that. And
Yeah.
he saved us a lot of money over the years in that way.
And you bring up an excellent point, Bill, because, you know, when he converted us to all LED lights and we became Energy Star schools, I mean, so, you know, when we try to look at energy savings, we have LED everywhere. And that was his initiative, and he did the grants for NIPSCO to get that done. And so I had forgotten about that, Bill, and you're absolutely right. That was a huge initiative that Felix took right away.
Thank you, Mr. Lunger. Mr. Mack?
I'd also like to congratulate Felix on his retirement. It's been a pleasure working with him over the last however many years. In terms of the safety system, as Dr. Buffington mentioned, that has been a large project, but it's nice to see it kind of come to fruition. We've been working on that for a couple months, and getting it fully implemented and staff trained on it has been rewarding. So huge shout out to Russ Mellon. He's been phenomenal with that. Greg Bialotta as well.
Yes.
And I think, you know, as Dr. Buffington mentioned, it's already been used. And so we're in that first week of it being live, and it's already being used, which I think just goes to show the importance of it. And so super proud of that. But my highlight for this week is a little different. Mrs. Mathis and I met with a student a couple days ago that needed some assistance with some things, and she's done a phenomenal job with that student over the last couple of months and last school year as well. And it just highlights that while, yes, we take care of every single student and make sure they have an outstanding education and they're going to be productive citizens, we also get down to that individual level to take care of their individual needs. And it was good conversation and put a smile on my face, so great part of this week.
Yeah. And when he's talking about Mrs. Mathis, obviously social emotional learning, and so she is a wanted lady. I mean, just a parent calling her today, seeking help. So besides your social workers and, you know, you've got your mental health advisor, they take her class sometimes, and then they just seek her for other things, whether it's yoga or whatever, trying to self-regulate and takes care of some of that anxiety that they may be feeling. And she is an incredible asset to us, so thank you for that, John, and thank you for helping her with that.
Mr. Krieg?
I did have the pleasure of attending ISBA with several of you. Dr. Jenner spoke, and her overall remark was leave it better than you found it. And I think that's a testament to Felix, you know, leave it better than you found it. And so I'd like to thank him for his service, Mr. Glover for the budget, right? Thankless job, probably in many regards, and Dr. Buffington working side by side with him on that. And then obviously Mr. Mock, I did participate in that training, and it's good to know that we're in good hands. The last thing that I would say is I had the pleasure, I guess it's still within the week, so last Friday, Ms. Phillips, you may have seen on social media pictures of our mayor who she had come in. She has a related arts class, and it's about success and just trying to show students different paths that people have taken to get where they are. Dr. Buffington has come in to speak with it, with those kids. It's just a related arts class. And she asked if I come in last Friday, and I did. And by far, it was my favorite day of the week, time of the week. I came back from Indy, and I had a stack of thank you cards that she does. And so I really enjoyed talking
talking with them, asking them questions. They ask me a lot of questions. They are our why. And I also wrote this down from Dr. Jenner that I think needs to be said. She said, leaders must ensure that momentum becomes habit, improvements are sustained, not temporary, and that success is embedded in systems, not just dependent on individual champions. So I'm very thankful for that and what she's doing with that class.
It's a great class. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank
You
you.
might get invited. Just saying.
Mr. Rogers?
First of all, I'd like to apologize for the popcorn because I did not make it. It was a little salty, I think, because I did not have any time
It's
today.
great.
But but I promise you that I will make some later in the year.
I don't know if I can eat this now. You didn't make it?
Well, I blessed it.
Oh, okay.
Is that enough?
The corn father.
I don't know if that'll be enough, but we'll see.
All right.
I'd like to thank Mr. Glover for the excellent job. He's taken over for Ted and he's doing an excellent job. I'd like to thank all of the students that volunteered at the pantry on Saturday. It was not an easy job because it was pouring at 9 o'clock in the morning when we were supposed to start. And they were able to get all of those bags out, except the ones that I was supposed to do, which I did yesterday. All of the bags out within like 4 hours, which was
Wow.
amazing.
That's great.
And we had a lot of teams show up, and it was very thankful, and we're hoping that they will show up again tomorrow. And we hope the rain will hold off, because collecting wet bags of groceries is not in our best interest.
No,
So,
definitely not.
Saturday, right?
Saturday. And
Saturday.
yet, the other thing, Felix, I think, has always been a forward thinker. I mean, he thought about the lights, I think, long before most other people did in other school systems. And I think that's what helped this school stay where it is.
Yeah.
And I hope he considers driving a bus.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but wishful thinking.
Mr. King?
I was also able to attend the ISBA. It was my first one. I'd like to thank everybody who was there for mentoring me through my first one. The kids appreciated you. I think if I were to say anything, I would say that hearing things like our technology department being able to do the install on a system and help is a testament to the people who are in the technology department, but also to HR, because finding qualified people and getting them in the right places saves money, even if people don't think about the upfront cost of how much a person makes or how much something like that is. You save money somewhere down the line by having good people who are going to do things like that for us. I mean, it's that hidden number, like you talked about with Felix, that you don't know about in the work that they do to save us money that you don't really see, you know, and it's very important money. So good job to everyone over there on that. For the school custodial and maintenance staff, the recognition day, hopefully you get them something nice.
Oh,
They-
yeah.
They deserve it. Kids, I love kids, but they're messy. So the classrooms definitely need their support. So I'm glad for them. Thank you everyone over there for the hard work on the budget. It's trying times. There's not a lot of relief coming right now. So thank you for putting in the hard work. Thank you everyone for over there trying to work within the means that we have. I came into this board in a position where you were already good stewards with the money. So it's not surprising that you guys are doing that, but I am thankful that you are. So, that's it.
Thank you. Grace?
Hello? Okay. I first want to thank the maintenance and custodial staff. They're a really vital part of our school district. I work closely with Mr. Chris Connor and Wolfgang and in theater, and so I see a lot of the stuff that he does in the school and like the other maintenance people, and it's really important, and as well as with the custodial staff when I'm here till 9 o'clock and they're still cleaning the bathrooms. Really appreciate coming into like a clean school. Homecoming week is right around the corner, and it's very exciting. I see all the clubs starting to get their homecoming parade floats ready, and everyone's excited for the dress-up days and the pep rally and the football game and the dance. And so it's great to just see the students come together to have the class war, but also together as brickies. And then I want to mention that HOSA is having our annual Balish Blood Drive on October 3rd. It is in honor of Mr. Steve Balish. We do that every year, and yeah.
Hey, Grace, can you make sure that I get that flyer so that I can get it on social media and get it in the newsletter?
Okay, I think the Brickies SCOH Instagram already has it.
I
Okay,
think it did
very
too.
good. Good job.
All right, Mr. Porras.
Okay, so unfortunately, I did not get a chance to attend the ISBA conference. That's like one of my favorite days of the whole year, okay, due to illness in the family. So I'm gonna tie that in with the Bricky clinic, because we did end up going to the emergency room, but they didn't really diagnose the problem. So then we were going to the Bricky clinic. As soon as we walked in, the healthcare provider there, like within 5 seconds, knew what was wrong.
She's amazing.
She's awesome,
Mhm.
yes. I don't know if I'd be able to give a BY.
Oh, a B-op? You want a
Yeah,
B-op for her?
yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, put me down for one of those.
okay.
Put it down for
She
one
did
of
an awesome
those.
job,
You got it.
I like
and,
that.
and the cost is much cheaper than going to the emergency room.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
people
we
have
always
no,
know
i-
I
people
always
have
do
no
an
idea.
urgent care or a clinic before the ER, always. It's faster and more efficient.
Mhm.
They seem to be able to provide a little bit more of an individualized care. And not that emergency room's just overwhelming. There's a lot of things going on. And so when you do an urgent care or something like the Bricky Clinic, it's a little bit more individual where you get the time that you need and whatnot. So I highly encourage that.
What would you
So-
like her B-op to say, Frank?
To thank her for the caring and professional care that she provided. And, yeah, that was very accurate, yes. She knew within like 5 seconds what was wrong. So that was awesome. Secondly, Mr. Glover, once again, thank you for all your hard work. The slides were awesome, easy to understand, and your explanation was great. I know it's a challenge with what's going on right now with the funding, but we'll get through this together.
We will.
Mr. Rogers, I was gonna thank you for the popcorn,
Yeah.
but since you didn't make it, I'd like to thank you anyway for,
Figure out how to get it.
but if they use your recipe, that'll be probably good enough.
There was no way that I was gonna be able to pop it yesterday, and so I stopped at the concession stand, and I said, just leave the popper on, and I'll come in about 10 o'clock after the volleyball game. And she said, I got a game tomorrow, I'll pop it for you. So
Oh, nice.
I appreciate what you did, and I'm sorry if it doesn't match the standard, but
It was deeply
People are
appreciated,
so
though.
fussy.
Yes. Okay, and one little story about Felix. You guys already kind of told a lot how great he is and everything, but he is rehabbing this one building downtown, and he's doing, of course, he's doing an awesome job. So every time I pass by, I kind of look to see what little thing he has added on to his project, and it's looking great. I'm waiting for the last part, and then that way I could ask him for a tour. Okay, but yeah, so good luck with the homecoming week, and great job on that side of the aisle for all your hard work and dedication.
Mrs. Helen?
Okay, the ISBA, what is it, IP?
IPSS.
That's a lot of letters.
It is.
It's always such a wonderful experience. We've learned so much, but the thing that I love most is getting to spend time with my fellow board members and getting to know them a little bit better. Brad, it was fun. I didn't mind the shirts. They were fine. I'm a picky dresser. I just marched to my own beat, that's all. But it was great spending time with everyone again. And, you know, sometimes when you sit with Tim, he's constantly educating you all the time.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, but that's a wonderful thing. But most importantly, I didn't know you were a shopper, you and Stu. That was something that was interesting.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was great.
I was a little surprised by that.
It was awesome, thank you.
TJ Maxx.
But now to be a little more serious, Mr. Glover, since you have taken on this role as the business manager, you have grown to be an exceptional business manager.
There you go.
And it shows in your explanations, your understanding, the hard work you put in, and I really appreciate what you do for our schools.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. And then congratulations to Felix. I love that I asked him and Kelsey both the same question, are you going to work or are you going to travel? And they both instantly said work. So the Second Street Market will continue in all its glory, and that's a lot of hard work doing that every weekend. And their renovations, and they talked about the ambulance that they purchased, that they will be turning into a camper. So that's kind of neat to see that they have that in the future for them to be
I didn't know that.
camping.
Did he buy our ambulance?
He did.
I didn't know that.
He
didn't tell
did.
me that.
That's
It's parked in his
awesome.
driveway. I saw it right away. He's rehabbing the whole thing and turning it into this camper.
I hope he leaves the lights in the siren, because that would be cool. I'm just saying.
You might have to change the color, just legally.
That
I don't
is
know, green and
hysterical.
yellows, but still,
Yeah.
how cool.
But it's just, we're gonna miss him, but he will be close by, and Ryan he's gonna do a great job, I'm sure. So, congratulations to him and the JROTC. That's a lot of kids. That's exciting that we have that many that can compete. So I will end with that.
Okay. I also attended the ISBA conference. It was great. Actually, some information that was useful. Sometimes we don't always get that because we already know a lot of what they're doing. I would have to agree with a lot of things that Sandy said. Mr. Krieg is always teaching us about stuff, which I appreciate.
Read the labels.
Read the labels.
And he orders like no one else.
That too, that too. And Sandy and I actually went to TJ Maxx, and Stu and Tim followed us out. We were like, what? It was great. And Mr. Keen learned very quickly, pick the stuff up, Brad. Just take it. Take that notebook, take the pens.
Doesn't
Come on,
matter
Brad.
if you don't, they're gonna put it in your bag anyway.
They are. They don't wanna take it home.
Take that candy too. The kids will enjoy it. I kept telling him, take that, your kids will like it. He said, oh, okay. He was a little shy at first. I think by the end he was good. His bag was full. It all worked out. Mr. Rogers, thank you for the popcorn. The thought is greatly appreciated.
I thought it was pretty good, though.
Even if your hands weren't actually in it or on it, it was still a great thought, and we
I
appreciate
carried it
it.
over.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yes,
Um,
thank you for that.
Grace, I'm not sure how your walk went Sunday. I hope everything went well. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. And good luck on the next project. And Dr. B, I had a student that reached out to me and said, how is Dr. B going to do cooking with Dr. B if she's in Indianapolis with you? And I said, because she's not in Indianapolis with me.
That was actually going to be rescheduled, so we scheduled it back in.
So,
And we had a great cooking with friends.
I just want to say
episode.
that was your first one for the year, correct?
It was.
All right, and I know the kids always look forward to that.
They were all, it's so funny, kids were like, it smells spicy in there. I was getting ready, and I said, well, yes, it's we're making ranch chicken wraps, barbecue ranch chicken wraps. It was one of the stations, and they're like, I need to take this class. And then we had a kid in my group that said, I'm signing up for this next week. And I said, we only do this once a month.
That's right.
And so he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, sorry about that. As I was coming out of it, this was hysterical. There were ROTC kids waiting to go to lunch. And they're like, is there any extra, Dr. Buffington? I'm like, there is, but you better get down there. And they start running like they're running a marathon race. Or not a marathon race, but like a sprint. They're running down there, and I'm like, oh, brother. So, I don't know. We did have a great time. I would say, when I look at the cooking class, our special needs population, our life skills class was in there with us. And so our students are so good with them. and each one of us have them in our stations. And so it's just great to watch how everybody interacts and they're part of the group. And I will share this part in my group. Your daughter Amanda was in my group. We made special brownies, candy bar brownies is what they're called. We always have a dessert. And there was a special instruction on the sheet besides the boxes that you have to use for brownies. And so I said to my group, how long do we have to cook the brownies for? And Summer is with us, and she said 10 minutes. And I said 10 minutes. And I said, what did the sheet say? And she said 10 extra minutes. And I'm like, thank you, Summer, because the rest of the group did not look at that. So then I said, how much on the box do we have to do? 39 to 42 minutes. What did Summer say? Thank goodness that Summer read the instructions. And so we did a little math in my group, but they were just so grateful that Summer was in their group, right? Aldo, Colton is Miss Bonnie's helper, and so it's just really beautiful to watch all of that happen inside of our cooking class. But of course, the best part of it is they get to eat, and so I've never seen so much food, but just piled up on kids' plates. But we have a great time with that.
Mr. Glover, and we appreciate that you do that, to take the time out of your day and your schedule to be here with the kids. We
It's fun.
appreciate that. Mr. Glover, they've all said it, I think Sandy said it the best, in the fact that the articulation of you being able to communicate our budget has come such a long way. I can remember the first night and just, I could tell, the nervousness and the being able to communicate, okay, well, I know that you all know this, but I still have to say it, and you've grown a lot, and we really appreciate the hard work that you put in. And I know this one was more of a challenge than what you're used to, so we appreciate that.
You're welcome.
For Felix, some of the comments were made about how he was here when the high school was being built, but not as our employee. And then to be able to hire him after, what a bonus to be able to hire someone that was actually here on the job that knew so much about our high school, and then to be in charge of the custodial and maintenance. It's almost like he was in charge of the whole building the whole time, like this was his building and his baby, and I'm sure that's probably how he feels, but how I just kind of now latched all that together, and we are sad to see him go. I'm sure that Ryan will do just fine.
He's doing a great job.
But to Felix, good luck, best wishes, enjoy his retirement. And John, thank you for your hard work with the new training. There's always some new gadget that we have to work with, and this one unfortunately was state mandated, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, here you go, but no money to go with it. Surprise. We'll roll with it and handle it. And I think that's all I have.
I will say that I wrote Felix a nice note for me, but I also threw in some of the ugliest paint chips I could find and recommended that he use them on his next house.
Oh, I love that.
All right, well, with that, I'm going to end the meeting, and our next meeting is going to be on October 2nd.